The massive alien ship Harmony's Edge moved slowly through the dark edges of space, far from any civilized worlds. Captain Velthar stood 8 feet tall with 6 arms and eyes like a giant insect. His kind, the Catherians, had been exploring space for thousands of years. They thought they had seen everything the universe could throw at them. But they were wrong. The ship's sensors started beeping frantically. Something was out there in the darkness, drifting without power. Velthar clicked his mandibles together, a sign he was thinking hard. In his 30 years of meeting new alien species, he had learned to be very careful. Most creatures they found were delicate, needing special air to breathe and warm temperatures to survive. "Prepare the medical bay," he ordered his crew. "Get the environmental suits ready. We'll need the gentle contact protocols." The unknown ship looked terrible. It was a human vessel called Pioneer's Dream, but the aliens didn't know that yet. Hull plates were twisted and torn. Wires hung loose like dead snakes. Strange burn marks covered the metal surfaces. Any normal spaceship would have been completely dead by now. But as they got closer, their scanners showed something impossible. There were still life signs inside. "Captain," said his science officer, a floating jellyfish-like creature named Quindal, "the readings don't make sense. That ship has no working life support. The temperature inside is below freezing. There's radiation leaking everywhere. Nothing should be alive in there." Velthar's 6 arms moved nervously. "Check the scanners again. There must be an error." But there was no error. 3 beings were definitely alive inside that frozen, poisoned wreck of a ship. The boarding party put on their thickest protective suits. They brought medical equipment, warm blankets, and emergency breathing apparatus. They expected to find dying creatures barely clinging to life, huddled together for warmth in some protected corner of the ship. Instead, they found Commander Park calmly working on a broken control panel. He wore only a thin uniform that would have been too light for a summer day on most civilized worlds. His breath didn't even fog in the freezing air. "Oh, hello there," Park said when he saw the alien boarding party. He spoke in perfect Confederation standard, which surprised them even more. "Sorry about the mess. We had some engine trouble a few weeks back." The aliens stared at him through their helmet visors. This human was supposed to be dead. The radiation levels alone should have killed him in hours, not weeks. The cold should have frozen his blood solid. The toxic air should have poisoned his lungs with every breath. But Park just smiled and gestured around the ruined ship like he was giving a tour of his backyard. "Let me show you to the others," he said cheerfully. Dr. Yuna Kim was in what used to be the ship's laboratory, still working on her rock samples. The room was so cold that the aliens' breath condensers were freezing up inside their suits. Kim wore a light jacket and seemed perfectly comfortable. Engineer Lee was deeper in the ship, trying to fix the main computer with parts that shouldn't have worked in the toxic atmosphere. His hands moved steadily without any protective gloves, touching metal that was cold enough to cause instant frostbite to any normal creature. "How are you still alive?" Velthar finally asked through his suit's translator. The 3 humans looked at each other and shrugged. "This really isn't that bad," Kim said, noticing how the aliens were shivering inside their heated suits. "Earth gets pretty rough sometimes. We're used to it." That's when Park decided to help clear the way to the ship's main corridor. A massive piece of twisted metal was blocking their path. 4 of Velthar's strongest crew members had tried to move it earlier and failed completely. It would have taken mechanical lifting equipment to budge something that heavy. Park just grabbed it with his bare hands and lifted it out of the way like it was made of cardboard. The alien stood in stunned silence. Their environmental suits were beeping warnings about the dangerous conditions, their heating systems were working overtime, and their radiation detectors were screaming alerts. But these humans were walking around like they were in a perfectly normal, safe environment. "We're from Earth," Kim explained, seeing their shocked expressions. "This isn't that bad compared to home." Velthar's compound eyes went wide. In 3 decades of first contact missions, he had met species that lived underwater, species that needed methane to breathe, and species that absorbed energy directly from stars. But he had never met anyone who could survive in conditions that would kill his own people in minutes. He began to realize that everything the Confederation knew about the limits of life might be completely wrong. These humans weren't just tough survivors. They were living impossibilities, walking proof that life could adapt to things that should have been absolutely deadly. The universe had just become a much more interesting and dangerous place. Dr. Silwen had studied alien biology for over 60 years. She was the galaxy's top expert on how different species worked inside their bodies. Her crystalline form sparkled with excitement as she prepared her most advanced medical scanners. She had examined creatures from gas giants, ice worlds, and desert planets. But nothing had prepared her for what she was about to discover. Engineer Lee volunteered to go first. He seemed genuinely curious about alien medical technology, asking questions about how their scanners worked while lying perfectly, still on the examination table. The other humans, Commander Park and Dr. Kim, watched from nearby chairs, completely relaxed despite being surrounded by alien medical equipment that looked more like torture devices. The first scan results made Dr. Silwen's light patterns flicker in confusion. She ran the scan 3 more times, thinking her equipment was broken. "This cannot be correct," she muttered to her assistant, a blob-like creature named Glooptar. "Run a full diagnostic on all scanners." But the scanners were working perfectly. The problem was that Lee's body didn't follow any rules they knew about biology. His bones were incredibly dense. Most species that evolved on high-gravity worlds had thick, heavy bones to support their weight. But even they weren't this strong. Lee's skeleton was 3 times denser than creatures who lived on planets where gravity was twice as strong as Earth's. "How much does your planet's gravity pull on you?" Dr. Silwen asked. "About standard, I think," Lee replied. "Maybe a little less than some places we've visited." That made no sense. Why would a species from a normal gravity world develop bones that belonged on a planet where everything weighed 3 times more? The cardiovascular scan was even more shocking. Lee's heart pumped blood at pressures that should have exploded his blood vessels instantly. Most alien species had delicate circulatory systems that worked at low pressure to avoid bursting. But human blood moved through their bodies like high-pressure hydraulic fluid. "Your blood pressure readings would kill any known species within minutes," Dr. Silwen explained, her voice filled with scientific wonder. "How do your blood vessels not burst?" Lee just shrugged. "Never really thought about it. We're built pretty tough, I guess." Dr. Silwen decided to test human endurance. She had Lee walk on a treadmill while monitoring his vital signs. Most species could manage light exercise for maybe 20 or 30 minutes before needing rest. Lee started jogging at a comfortable pace. After 30 minutes, his breathing was still steady. After an hour, he was barely sweating. Dr. Silwen increased the speed and incline, trying to find his limits. 2 hours later, Lee was still running. He wasn't even breathing hard. The alien medical team gathered around their monitors in stunned silence. His heart rate had increased only slightly. His oxygen levels remained perfectly stable. His muscle tissue showed no signs of fatigue or damage. "This is impossible," whispered Glooptar. "No carbon-based life form can maintain physical activity for this duration without cellular breakdown." "Should I keep going?" Lee asked cheerfully, not even out of breath. "I usually run for about 3 hours back home." Dr. Silwen's crystalline form dimmed with shock. 3 hours was longer than most. Species could walk slowly, let alone run. But the real surprise came when they examined the human cellular repair systems. Every living creature gets damaged by radiation, toxins, and normal wear and tear. Most species heal slowly, taking weeks or months to recover from serious injuries. Human cells repaired themselves at impossible speeds. The radiation damage from their broken ship should have killed them slowly over several weeks, causing organs to shut down one by one. Instead, their bodies were actively fighting off the radiation damage faster than it could accumulate. "Your cellular repair mechanisms operate at impossible speeds," Dr. Silwen explained through her translation device, her scientific excitement overriding her usual calm demeanor. "The radiation exposure alone should have caused systematic organ failure weeks ago." Dr. Kim smiled while looking at the scans of her own body on the alien screens. The images showed her cells constantly rebuilding themselves, fighting off toxins, and adapting to hostile conditions in real time. Our immune systems had to get creative, she explained simply. Earth kept trying to kill us, so we learned to heal fast and fight off everything. The scans revealed something even more amazing. Humans had backup systems for almost everything. If one organ got damaged, another could take over its function. If one biological process failed, their bodies had alternate ways to accomplish the same task. Most species had evolved specialized systems that worked efficiently in stable environments. Humans had evolved redundant, adaptable systems that could handle constant change and catastrophic failure. You have 3 different ways your body can process toxins, Dr. Silwen marveled. Most species have 1, maybe 2 if they're lucky. Earth has a lot of different poisons, Park explained matter-of-factly. Plants, animals, bacteria, fungi, volcanic gases, you name it. Our bodies learned to handle whatever got thrown at us. The medical team realized they weren't just looking at tough survivors. They were examining biological impossibilities that walked around as living proof that life could exceed every theoretical boundary they had established. These humans had evolved on a world so dangerous that their bodies had developed capabilities that shouldn't exist. They were living examples of what happened when evolution was pushed beyond all known limits. The galaxy's understanding of biology was about to be completely rewritten. 3 days after the medical examinations, the Confederation's most advanced computers received a quantum transmission from Earth. The data package contained detailed information about humanity's home planet, gathered by their deep space monitoring stations. What arrived was so shocking that it literally crashed their xenological databases. Senior analyst Morden had been studying planetary classifications for 40 years. He had seen worlds covered in acid rain, planets where the surface temperature could melt lead, and gas giants with storms that lasted for centuries. But as Earth's data scrolled across his screens, his tentacles began trembling with disbelief. The computer systems kept shutting down, unable to process readings that seemed impossible. Mordoon had to restart the analysis programs 5 times before they could handle Earth's environmental data without crashing. Class Thwurtoon. Deathworld, he whispered to himself, reading the classification that appeared on his screen. That's the highest rating we have. Class Twos. Deathworlds were theoretical nightmares, planets so hostile that the Confederation had only identified 3 others in the entire galaxy. Even their most advanced robotic probes rarely survived long enough on such worlds to gather meaningful data. Most broke down within hours of landing. Yet somehow, an entire intelligent species had not just survived on such a world, but thrived. There for millions of years, the environmental readings painted a picture of planetary chaos that defied imagination. Earth's surface was constantly shifting and changing. Massive chunks of land called continents moved around like puzzle pieces, crashing into each other and creating mountain ranges. This continental drift happened so regularly that it caused mass extinction events every few million years. Volcanoes erupted with enough force to change the planet's climate for decades. Some explosions were so powerful they could be seen from space, throwing enough ash into the atmosphere to block out the sun. The largest volcanic events, called super eruptions, had the power to end civilizations overnight. But that was just the beginning. Earth's weather systems were absolutely insane by galactic standards. Hurricanes with winds that could level cities formed regularly and swept across the continents. Tornadoes touched down like spinning hammers, destroying everything in their path. Blizzards buried entire regions under tons of snow and ice. The planet experienced regular ice ages that froze most of the surface for thousands of years at a time. Between these frozen periods, temperatures would swing dramatically in the other direction, creating desert conditions across vast areas. Even worse, Earth sat in a dangerous part of space where asteroids and comets regularly smashed into the surface. The most recent major impact had been only 65 million years ago, an event so catastrophic it had wiped out the planet's dominant life forms and completely changed the global ecosystem. Commander Park found the entire alien crew huddled around, their displays in the ship's main science lab. They were staring at Earth's environmental data with expressions of horror and disbelief. Your homeworld, stammered Science Officer Quilen, her crystalline form flickering with shock. It's actively trying to kill everything that lives on it. The data showed that Earth's atmosphere had changed composition dramatically multiple times throughout its history. What humans breathed now was actually toxic to most galactic life forms. The oxygen levels alone would be poisonous to many species, and the atmospheric pressure would crush creatures adapted to gentler worlds. Your species evolved during constant geological upheaval, Quilen continued, her voice barely above a whisper. Meteor impacts, ice ages, volcanic winters, atmospheric composition changes that would sterilize most civilized worlds. Park looked at the data they were so amazed by and shrugged casually. Yeah, Earth keeps us on our toes, always has. The aliens couldn't understand his calm reaction. They were looking at readings that described a hellish nightmare world, and he was talking about it like it was a minor inconvenience. How did your people survive long enough to develop intelligence? Asked Captain Velthar, his insect-like head tilting in confusion. We got good at adapting, Dr. Kim explained, joining the conversation. When your environment changes constantly, you either learn to change with it or you die out. The species that made it were the ones who could handle anything. Engineer Lee was nearby, working on repairs to the alien ship's scanning equipment. He had already fixed 3 different systems using methods that violated everything the aliens knew about engineering. Parts that shouldn't work together were somehow functioning perfectly under his modifications. Yeah, Earth's pretty unstable, Lee said without looking up from his work. Earthquakes, volcanoes, hurricanes, floods, droughts, ice storms, heat, waves. That's why we got good at adapting quickly. He gestured to the jury-rigged repair he'd just completed, where he had connected Confederation technology using principles their own engineers had declared theoretically impossible. When your planet keeps changing the rules every few thousand years, you learn to improvise with whatever you have available. The alien crew began to understand something that chilled them to their cores. These humans hadn't simply survived on a dangerous world by hiding in caves or building protective shelters. They had been forged by Earth's constant catastrophes, shaped by millions of years of planetary violence into something that treated disaster as a normal part of life. Every mass extinction event had made them stronger. Every climate change had made them more adaptable. Every natural disaster had taught them new ways to survive and thrive under impossible conditions. Earth hadn't just produced tough survivors. It had created a species that viewed catastrophic change not as a threat to be feared, but as an opportunity for growth and innovation. The Confederation was beginning to realize they had encountered something unprecedented in galactic history. A species that had been weaponized by their own planet's attempts to destroy them. The news about humans spread across the galaxy faster than anyone expected. Within just a few days, every major government, scientific institution, and military organization in Confederation space had received reports about the Terran anomaly. Emergency meetings were called on dozens of worlds as leaders tried to figure out what this discovery meant for the rest of the galaxy. On the capital world of Centaurus Prime, the Confederation Council held its first emergency session in over 50 years. Representatives from hundreds of species gathered in the Great Assembly Hall, their various forms of communication devices translating panicked discussions into a chaos of overlapping voices. A species that can survive Class Twaithene Deathworld conditions, announced Chancellor Vexhall, a floating gas bag creature whose voice resonated through specialized speakers. The implications are staggering. Some council members were terrified. If humans could survive anything, what would stop them from taking over weaker civilizations? Other representatives saw opportunity. There were vast regions of space that had been considered permanently uninhabitable. Maybe humans could explore and colonize areas that had been off limits for thousands of years. The military leaders were the most concerned. General Korthvan, a heavily armored reptilian from a high-gravity world, stood before the assembly with his scales bristling nervously. If these humans can operate in conditions that would kill our soldiers instantly, he rumbled, how do we defend ourselves if they become hostile? Our weapons are designed for normal biological limitations. But before anyone could develop plans or policies, the universe decided to provide a real test of human capabilities. Research Station Omega-7 was a joint scientific facility orbiting a dead star in the neutral zone. Human scientists had been working there for just 2 weeks, collaborating with Confederation researchers on projects that required both human adaptability and alien technology. It was supposed to be a peaceful introduction to galactic cooperation. The Hegemony pirates had other ideas. The Hegemony was a loose alliance of raiders and criminals who operated in the lawless regions between civilized space. They were known for using brutal environmental weapons that could clear out entire space stations without damaging valuable equipment. Their usual tactics involved filling enclosed spaces with toxic gases, radiation, or extreme temperatures that would force defenders to surrender or die. When 3 Hegemony raider ships approached Omega-7, Station Commander Athgor immediately ordered all personnel to emergency shelters. Standard protocol called for sealing everyone in protected areas while waiting for military rescue that might take days to arrive. Security Chief Min had a different idea. "Sir, my team can handle this," he told Commander Athgor over the communication system. "We don't need to wait for rescue." Athgor stared at the human through his protective faceplate. Min's security team consisted of just 3 people, himself, Officer Jin, and Specialist Yoon. The pirates were bringing enough firepower to overwhelm a full military squadron. "Chief Min, there are over 40 pirates on those ships. They have environmental weapons that will kill you in minutes." Min just smiled. "Commander, with respect, we're from Earth. We've been dealing with environmental hazards our whole lives. What happened next would be talked about in military academies for decades." The pirates breached the station's hull and immediately began flooding the corridors with their standard attack pattern. Toxic gas that would cause respiratory failure, temperature variations that swung from freezing to boiling, and radiation bursts designed to cause immediate cellular damage. Within minutes, every alien on the station was sealed in emergency shelters, their environmental suits struggling to keep them alive even in the protected areas. The station's automated systems were screaming warnings about lethal conditions throughout the facility. But Min's team moved through the chaos like it was a minor inconvenience. Officer Jin used the toxic gas clouds as concealment, moving invisibly through the green fog that would have killed any other species in seconds. The pirates couldn't see her coming until she was already behind them. Specialist Yoon turned the radiation bombardment into a tactical advantage, using his scanner to track the radiation sources back to the pirates' positions. What was meant to kill him became a navigation system. Chief Min treated the extreme temperature variations like weather changes, adapting his approach based on whether an area was currently frozen or superheated. When corridors filled with steam from boiling coolant, he moved through it like morning fog. "Commander," reported one of the station's automated systems, "the environmental weapons appear to be malfunctioning. They're not affecting the human security team." Commander Athgor watched through the station's security cameras in amazement. The humans weren't just surviving the pirates' environmental attacks. They were using them as weapons against the attackers themselves. When the pirates tried to retreat to areas with normal atmosphere, they found the humans had herded them there, intentionally. Min's team had turned the entire environmental weapon system into a trap, using the pirates' own tactics to corner them in the few safe areas of the station. The battle lasted only 43 minutes. When it ended, all 42 pirates were either captured or neutralized. Min's team had suffered injuries that would have put any other species in intensive care for months: radiation burns, chemical poisoning, and tissue damage from extreme temperatures. But they remained fully operational and ready for additional threats. They're treating poison gas as concealment and radiation fields as tactical advantages, Commander Athgor reported to Confederation Command, his voice filled with awe and fear. "The humans aren't just surviving environmental weapons, they're weaponizing them." The galaxy suddenly realized that humans didn't just endure harsh conditions. They turned hostile environments into strategic advantages. What was meant to kill them made them stronger and more dangerous. Military planners across Confederation space began rewriting their tactical manuals. The old rules of combat had just been completely shattered by 3 humans who treated deadly weapons like useful tools. The universe had become a much more interesting and dangerous place. 6 months had changed everything. What started as a simple rescue mission had transformed into a complete revolution of how the galaxy operated. Humans weren't just surviving in Confederation space. They were thriving in places where no one else could even exist. The first major breakthrough happened at the Kepler station, built around a dying star that was slowly collapsing into a neutron star. The radiation levels near the stellar core were so intense that even the most advanced robotic systems failed within hours. For decades, the Confederation had only been able to study the phenomenon from a safe distance. Then Engineer Cho volunteered to go inside. "You can't be serious," said Station Director Falmesh, her jellyfish-like form pulsing with worry. "The radiation levels will cook you alive in minutes." Cho just shrugged and put on a basic radiation suit, not because he needed the protection, but because it made the aliens feel better. "I've worked inside nuclear reactors back on Earth. This should be similar." What followed was 8 hours of Cho working directly in the stellar core, taking measurements and installing equipment that had been impossible to place before. The data he collected in a single day advanced stellar physics by decades. "The neutron formation process is completely different than we theorized," he reported over the communication system, his voice calm despite working in conditions that would vaporize most known materials. "I can see the magnetic field lines with the naked eye. This is incredible." Meanwhile, across the galaxy, human explorers were mapping regions that had been marked as permanently dangerous on every star chart. The Dragon's Breath Nebula had been avoided for centuries because its toxic gas clouds and electrical storms destroyed any ship that entered. Captain Sue and her crew spent 3 weeks inside it, charting safe passages and cataloging new phenomena. "The electrical activity follows predictable patterns," she reported to Confederation Navigation Command. "Once you understand the rhythm, it's like dancing with lightning." Her alien crew members watched in amazement as she piloted their ship through electrical storms that could power entire planets, treating the deadly light show as a navigation aid rather than a hazard. But the real game-changer came when Dr. Han volunteered for the Sigma Plague mission. The Altair system had been under strict quarantine for 37 years. A biological plague had swept through all 7 inhabited worlds, killing billions of people from 14 different species. Every medical team sent to study the disease had either died or been forced to retreat. The entire star system was considered a dead zone, written off as a total loss. Dr. Han walked onto the quarantined worlds without even wearing a full environmental suit. "The pathogen works by attacking cellular repair mechanisms," she explained while examining infected tissue samples. With her bare hands, "Most species can't fight it off because their immune systems aren't designed for this level of biological warfare." She spent 2 months on the infected worlds, living among the contaminated ruins and developing treatments in real time. Her alien colleagues worked from sealed orbital stations, watching through remote cameras as she interacted directly with plague victims who had been considered untouchable for decades. "Your cellular repair systems are actually using the plague organism as raw material," reported Dr. Zelka from the safety of her sterile laboratory ship. "You're not just immune, you're consuming the infection and getting stronger from it." "Doctor." Han nodded while administering a newly developed cure to a group of survivors. "Earth's diseases taught us to turn biological attacks into biological resources. This plague is actually pretty mild compared to some things we deal with back home." Within 6 months, she had not only cured the Sigma plague but had developed vaccines that made other species immune to similar biological weapons. The Altair system was reopened, and billions of lives were saved. But the mission that truly shocked the galaxy was Captain Wu's expedition to the galactic core. The center of the galaxy was considered absolutely impassable. Gravitational anomalies from the supermassive black hole created space-time distortions that had destroyed every probe mission attempted over the past 1,000 years. The radiation levels were beyond measurement, and the gravitational forces could tear apart anything made of normal matter. Captain Wu treated it like a sightseeing trip. "The gravitational patterns are actually quite beautiful once you learn to read them," she reported while piloting her ship through space-time distortions that bent light into impossible shapes. "It's like surfing waves made of gravity." Her mixed species crew watched through reinforced viewing ports as she navigated through conditions that defied the laws of physics. Where they saw deadly chaos, she saw navigational opportunities. Navigator Kelhari, a crystalline being who had spent centuries mapping safe space routes, stared at their successful passage through the galactic core with something approaching religious awe. "Your people don't just survive impossible conditions," he whispered, his crystal form resonating with amazement. "You find them stimulating." Captain Wu smiled while reviewing the data from their successful core mapping mission. They had charted stable routes through regions that had been considered permanently impassable, opening up entirely new areas of the galaxy for exploration and colonization. "Earth taught us that impossible just means nobody's figured out how to do it yet," she said simply. "Give us enough time, and we'll find a way through anything." The Confederation Council was forced to completely rewrite their understanding of what was possible. Regions of space that had been marked as dead zones for thousands of years were suddenly accessible. Scientific phenomena that had only been studied from a distance could now be examined up close. Medical challenges that had plagued civilization for millennia were being solved by humans who treated deadly diseases like interesting puzzles. The galaxy had expected to encounter another species that would need protection and assistance. Instead, they had discovered evolution's ultimate answer to an impossible universe. Beings who viewed every challenge not as an obstacle to overcome, but as an opportunity to prove that adaptation truly had no limits. Humanity's greatest gift to the galaxy wasn't their incredible physical abilities or their remarkable endurance. It was their absolute refusal to accept that anything was truly beyond the reach of determined intelligence and adaptive will. The universe had just become infinitely larger and more accessible, thanks to a species that treated the impossible as merely inconvenient.